From the shadows of Dungeon Hall to the chaos of Trial and the open fields where world bosses roam, this Stamina Warden DPS build is made for the hunt. With crushing melee blows, relentless bleed damage, and the claws of your animal summons, you'll have everything you need to track, bleed, and bring down your prey. This build follows a simple priority: keep your bleeds and buffs active, then strike with whatever hits hardest in the moment. In this video, I will walk you through the gear, skills, and champion points that make this build hit so hard, and show you exactly how it performs when the hunt begins. So grab your weapon, follow that trail, and let's start the hunt. For this setup, I'm going with Orc as my race. They bring great stamina bonuses, extra weapon damage, and that little boost to speed and health that fits perfectly for a stamina DPS playstyle. All attribute points are invested straight into stamina. This gives me the strongest resource pool possible for both damage and sustain. For food, I'm using Dubious Cameron Throne. It's a great all-around option, boosting max stamina, max health, and stamina recovery, letting me keep up my rotations without running dry. For potions, I run Essence of Weapon Power, which provide major brutality, major savagery, and stamina recovery, keeping my damage consistent and my crit chance up. Finally, my Mundus Stone is the Thief, pushing my critical chance even higher so I can make the most out of my burst windows. With our build locked in and our strength sharpened, it's time to take a look at the weapons in our arsenal. These are the skills that let us tear into our prey, keeping them bleeding, and finish the fight on our terms. On the front bar, I open with Cutting Dive, my main spam mode, and primary range bleed attack that can hit from 28 meters. It deals strong upfront bleed damage, followed by a potent bleed over time effect. If the target is more than 7 meters away, it can also set them off balance, creating an opening for heavier hits. This is more from Dive in the Animal Companion skill line. Next is Tentacular Dread, which lashes out in a wide arc, hitting enemies in a 15 by 5 meter area. It can immobilize them for 3 seconds and marks them with the Abyssal Ink for 20 seconds, increasing the damage they take by 5%. This is more from Abyssal Impact in the Herald of the Tome skill line. Detonating Siphon is a range AoE that hits from 28 meters and deals disease damage in a 5 meter area over 20 seconds. It grants major savagery for an increased critical rating, and while it's slotted, you gain 3% extra damage done. This is more from Shocking Siphoning in the Gravelord skill line. Then there's Barbed Trap, which covers a 2.5 meter radius and lasts 20 seconds. The first strike deals a bleed damage, followed by a bleed over time effect for the full duration. You also gain Minor Force, increasing your critical damage by 10% the entire time it's active. This is morphed from the Trapped Beast in the Fighters Guild skill line. Deep Fissure summons a pair of Shulk that erupt after 3 seconds, striking in a 20 by 7 meter area. 6 seconds later, they burrow back up to hit again. Enemies hit are inflicted with both major and minor breach, reducing their resistance. This is more from Scorch in the Animal Companion skill line. The ultimate here is Wild Guardian, summoning your Grizzly to shred enemies with bleed damage. Occasionally, it delivers a swipe that stuns for 2 seconds, dealing even greater bleed damage. And its ultimate attack mauls the target for massive damage, dealing double to enemies under 25% health. This is more from Feral Guardian in the Animal Companion skill line. Switching to the back bar, I run Stampede to close the gap from up to 22 meters away. You rush forward, dealing AoE damage in a 5-meter radius and hitting enemies for critical damage. Then leave behind a damage area for 15 seconds. This is more from Critical Charge in the two-handed skill line. Carve adds another reliable bleed sword, a 6-meter cone attack that deals immediate bleed damage, then applies a bleed over time for 12 seconds. If the target is already bleeding from Carve, the duration is extended by 10 seconds, up to a maximum of 32 seconds, and you gain a damage shield for 6 seconds. This is more from Cleave in the two-handed skill line. For Sustain, I slot Resolving Vigor, which lets out a battle cry to heal you over 5 seconds, while granting minor resolve to boost your resistance. This is more from Vigor in the Alliance War Assault skill line. Gravelord's Sacrifice summons a skeleton after 2.5 seconds, which leaps towards you and infuses you with soul energy for 20 seconds. This buff increases all damage done with Necromancer abilities and damage over time effects by 15%. This is more from Skeletal Arcanist in the Gravelord's skill line. Growing Swarm hits from 25 meters and inflicts the primary target with a heavy bleed over 20 seconds, while applying minor vulnerability increase their damage taken by 5%. Enemies within 5 meters take bleed damage every 2 seconds as well. This is more from Swarm in the Animal Companion skill line. Backbar ultimate is also Wild Guardian, keeping that Grizzly ready to finish off weakened targets with devastating bleed damage. Before we get into the next fight, let's talk about the hidden power in this build, the passives. They don't take up any bar space, they don't have flashy animations, but they are always working in the background, stacking extra damage, sustain, and survivability on everything we do. From the Animal Companion line, Flourish boosts Magicka and Stamina Recovery by 20% when an Animal Companion skill is slotted, and Advanced Species increases our critical damage by 5% for each Animal Companion ability slotted, a great boost for this build. In the Gravelord line, Death Kneel increases our critical strike chance by 20% against enemies under 33% health when we have a Gravelord ability slotted. Dismember grants 3,271 penetration while a Gravelord ability is active. And Rapid Rot, this increases our damage done with dots by 10%. Perfect for a bleed heavy setup. From Herald of the Tome, Harness Quintessence boost our weapon and spell damage by 284 for 10 seconds whenever we restore Magicka or Stamina. Psijic Lenience increases damage dealt by status effects by 15%, and their chances to apply by 55%, with a Herald of the Tome skill slotted. And Splintered Secrets adds 1,240 penetration per Herald of the Tome ability slotted. On our dual wield front bar, dual wield expert increases damage done by our offhand weapon by 6%, and twin blade and blunt adds 657 critical rating for each dagger equipped. And we're running 2 daggers for maximum crit. On the two-handed back bar, Forceful causes our light and heavy attack to cleave up to 3 other enemies for 100% of the damage dealt to the main target. Heavy weapons increases our critical damage done by 12%. Follow up increases our two-handed attack damage by 10% for 4 seconds after a fully charged heavy attack. And Battle Rush raises our stamina recovery by 30% for 10 seconds after a kill. With 2 light armor pieces, Evocation boosts Magicka recovery by 4% and reduces Magicka skill cost by 2% per piece. Prodigy increases our critical rating by 219 per piece, and Concentration adds 939 penetration per piece. For our 5 medium armor pieces, Dexterity boosts critical damage and critical healing by 2% per piece. Windwalker increases stamina recovery by 4% and reduces the stamina skill cost by 2% per piece. And Agility boosts our damage by 2% per piece. From the Fighter Guild, we have Slayer, which increases our damage by 3% for each Fighter Guild skill slotted. And Skill Tracker, boosting Fighter Guild ability damages by 10%. From the Undaunted, Undaunted Command restores resources when activating a synergy. And Undaunted Metal increases max health, stamina, and magicka by 2% per type of armor worn, giving us a solid, well-rounded boost thanks to our mixed armor setup. Finally, medicinal use from the alchemy skill line is a must-have, letting our potion effects last their entire cooldown, which keeps our major brutality, major savagery, and sustained buffs up all the time. With those passives in place, our build is firing on all cylinders, boosting our sustain, stacking up critical chance, and making every hit count. But passives are only part of the picture. To really bring all of this together, we need the right gear to complement our skills and playstyle. So let's break down the sets, weapons, and traits that make this build shine. For this build, our main 5-piece set is Pillar of Nirn. The front bar is dual-wield daggers, one with a fire damage enchantment and the Nirn Hone trait to increase weapon damage by 14%. The other with a poison damage enchantment and the precise trait to boost weapon critical by 3.1%. Pillar of Nirn gives critical chance, weapon and spell damage, and its 5-piece bonus triggers when you deal damage, creating a fissure underneath the enemy after 1 second that deals bleed damage to all enemies within 2.5 meters, followed by an additional bleed damage over 10 seconds. This effect can occur once every 10 seconds, making it a consistent source of AoE bleed damage. You could also run this set on the back bar if you don't have the Maelstrom Battle Axe. For the back bar, we are running the Maelstrom Battle Axe with a weapon damage enchantment to increase damage by 400 for 5 seconds. Paired with the infused trait to boost the enchantment effect by 25% and cuts its cooldown in half. This weapon's unique effect empowers your Stampede ability. When you use it, you stir up a barbarous lust for battle for 18 seconds, increasing your damage done with direct damage attack by 7%, stacking up to 12%. The second set we're running on the body is the Blooddrinker, a medium armor set that boosts bleed damage by 20%. This is perfect for our build, as several of our abilities and Pillar of Nirn procs apply bleed damage over time. All pieces of this are in Divine Trait to increase the Mundstone effect by 8.1% and enchanted with maximum stamina to keep our resource pool strong. Our monster set is Slimecrawl, worn in 2 light armor pieces with Divine Traits and max stamina enchantment. Slimecrawl adds critical chance and, more importantly, gives us minor berserk buff at all time, increasing all damage done by 5%. Finishing up the Pillar of Nirn set on the jewelry, all 3 pieces are in the Bloodthirsty trait, increasing weapon and spell damage against enemies under 90% health by up to 315, and enchanted with multi-effect glyph to gain 160 weapon and spell damage along with 10 stamina recovery. If you don't have access to Pillar of Nirn yet, or you want something that is a bit easier to farm and still very strong, you can swap it out for the Briarheart set. Briarheart adds critical chance and max stamina, and the 5-piece bonus is where it really shines. When you deal critical damage, you increase your weapon and spell damage by 424 for 10 seconds. While this effect is active, your critical strike also heals you for 230 health. This can occur once every 15 seconds, which means you will see very high uptime in any fight with consistent crits. Briarheart works especially well in solo content thanks to the built-in healing, but is still a strong option for group DPS. You can run it in the same slots as Pillar and Nirn, front bar weapons, and all 3 jewelry pieces without needing to change the rest of the build. It can also be ran on the back bar if you don't have the Maelstrom Battle Axe, giving you a full 5-piece bonus without relying on arena weapons. With our gear fitted, sharpened, and ready for battle, it's time to put it to work. This build isn't about a rigged, button-perfect rotation. It's about following a deadly priority, keeping your bleeds running, keeping your buffs active, and hit with whatever will hurt the most in that moment. The hunt doesn't wait for cooldowns, and neither should you. Here's how it all comes together when the claws come out. Let's walk through how I approach my rotation, starting with group content where you have a tank holding the bomb. I open up with Deep Fissure, weave in a light attack, then Barb Trap, light attack, and swap to your back bar. From here, Gravelord Sacrifice, light attack, Growing Swarm, light attack again, then Carve, light attack, and then Stampede, light attack again, and swap back to your front bar. If it's available, use Detonating Siphon, weaving in a light attack, and then move on to Tentacular Dread, light attack once more, and your main spammable Cutting Die. Keep weaving a light attack before every skill cast, and watch your timers, aiming to refresh abilities when you have about 2 to 3 seconds left. For solo play, I like to start before combat by casting Deep Fissure, swapping to the back bar, and applying Gravelord's Sacrifice. Then engage with Stampede. Light attack, Glowing Swarm, weave attack, carve, weave another attack, then I swap to the front bar, barb trap, weave again, detonating siphon if available, light attack, then tentacular dread, light attack, and finish the rest of your cycle with cutting dive until timers need refreshing. And remember, real combat isn't a training dummy. You will need to adapt for movement, mechanics, and incoming damage. So weave in Resolving Vigor when you need to keep yourself alive, because a dead DPS is no DPS. Now that we've gone through the rotation and how to keep your uptime high, let's talk champion points. These are where you fine-tune your character for more damage, better sustain, and a bit of survivability. We'll go over the key picks so you're not wasting points in places that won't help this build shine. Starting in the Warfare tree, or the blue tree, we have Fighting Finesse, which increases both your critical damage and your critical healing by 4% per state, giving us a total of 8% when fully ranked. Wrathful Strikes is next, adding a flat 205 weapon and spell damage to all our abilities. Then we got Master at Arms, which boosts the damage of our direct damage attacks by 3% per stage, for a total of 6%. And finally, Thaumaturge, which increases the power of our damage over time effects by 3% per stage, also for a total of 6% when max. Moving into the fitness tree, the red tree, we start with Boundless Vitality, which gives us 28 max health per stage, adding up to 1,400 max health at full rank. Rejuvenate adds 90 recovery to all 3 resources, health, magicka, and stamina. Bloody Renewal is excellent for stamina sustain, restoring 1,500 stamina whenever we kill an enemy. And Bastion, increasing the strength of our damage shields by 3% per stage for a total of 15%, but also increasing our damage dealt to shielded targets by 15%. Lastly, over in the craft tree or the green tree, I pick up a few passives here specifically for combat because they provide a small but valuable benefit during fights. Steadfast Enchantment gives us a 10% chance per stage up to 50% total to not consume a weapon enchantment charge when activated, keeping our weapons performing at their best for longer. Rationer adds 10 minutes per stage for a total of 30 extra minutes to the duration of any food or drink we consume, which means we stay buffed longer without having to reapply. And Liquid Efficiency gives us a 10% chance not to consume a potion or poison when we use it. Helps with sustain and resource management over time. These champion points are focused on giving us consistent combat power, reliable sustain, and just enough survivability to keep us in the fight, all without overcomplicating the build. And that covers our champion points. With these slotted in, your build will be well-rounded and ready to handle both solo content and group play. At the end of the day, remember that this build is a foundation. It's here to help you push your damage higher, stay alive longer, and adapt to the fight in front of you. Real combat isn't a training dummy, so keep yourself alive because a dead DPS is no DPS. Watch your timers, keep up your rotations, and let the flow of battle guide you. And most importantly, have fun with it. That's why we all play after all. Until next time, take care and happy adventuring.